Welcome to our panel session today on Turkey-US economic relations. First of all, I would like to thank Calder, Turkish Society for Quality, for this very timely session on bilateral economic relations. Today, I'll be moderating the panel as AmCham Turkey current president. And we have very valuable esteemed guests with us. First of all, Tamer Saka. Tamer Saka is U.S. Chamber of Commerce, U.S.-Turkey Business Council co-chair, and also he is the group president of building materials at Sabancı Holding. Welcome, Tamer Bey.
Thank you, Tankut Bey. Thank you.
Then we have Murat TARAKÇIODLU, who is the chairman of Cargill for Middle East, Turkey, and Africa. And Cargill is also U.S.-Turkey Business Council's chair company. Welcome, Murat Bey.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much, Tankut Bey.
And last but not least, we have David VITTER, who's the partner of Mercury, a leading public affairs company in Washington, D.C. He leads the development of Mercury's Gulf South operations. He's also former U.S. Senator for Louisiana, served from 2005 to 2017. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you, Tankut.
Thank you. So before we move on with questions to our panelists, actually, I would like to briefly inform our participants on how AmCham and today's panel actually relate to each other, especially in this year's focus on the Quality Congress. First of all, our aim is to improve the ecosystem of our Turkish partner companies in Turkey as AmCham, as we represent the leading US companies in Turkey. And Calder's approach is also actually to improve the sustainable competitive strength of companies through quality production. So from that angle actually, Calder's approach overlaps pretty much with our priority. Actually, we have set our priority this year as AmCham Turkey is to be the power that carry Turkey to the global markets. And we support this with three angles. One is the investments, employment, and exports that are more than 110 partners. They have around $9 billion exports from Turkey. The second is the bringing diverse talent and improving corporate governance as our members. And the third one is directly related to Calder's priority, is connecting with our local business partners to increase their standards first to serve our member companies and then be partner with us globally, so they are integrated in the global value chain of our member companies, the US companies. So in line with those, we have actually priorities, 5 priorities. First is to protect the existing US investments. Second, to increase them. Third is to promote Turkey as a regional center for American companies. And fourth and foremost is pursue greater participation in global value chain for our partner Turkish SMEs. And last one is development of the world-class diverse talents. So here in the current period, actually, we focused a lot on, together with the public sector, how we can bring Turkey to the forefront in the global value chains that have been disrupted by the COVID-19 outbreak. So today's Calder Congress specific focus on new direction and horizons, we feel very much in line with the focus of the American companies, member companies of AmCham Turkey, because US investments has transformative impact in their host country, and we encourage our Turkish partners to participate in global value chains by leveraging innovation, R&D, increase their quality via partnering with our member companies. So with that introduction, actually, as I said, it's very timely to look into the future of the bilateral economic relations with US, with the valuable panelists. And now I would like to start with Tamer Bey with the first question. Tamer Bey, you are the co-chair of the US-Turkey Business Council, and the 38th American-Turkish Conference was held last month, actually, to enhance trade and investment relations between Turkey and US. As the Vice President of the American-Turkish Council, and in line with the Calder's conference theme this year, New Directions and Horizons, which areas, key business sectors will you think steer and deepen Turkey-US relations as we move forward towards the $100 billion trade goal, which the both presidents set as a target a while ago? Tamer, we would like to learn from you on that.
Thank you. Tankut Bey, first of all, I would like to thanks to you and Calder to opportunity to be here today, and for giving me and then the Murat Bey from Cargill a chance to represent the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, U.S. Turkey Business Council as Vice Chair and Chair. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is the largest business association in the world, inaugurated its U.S. Turkey Business Council with the Prime Minister Erdogan and the Vice President Biden in 2013 to promote to robust economic and the commercial relationship between the two countries. Last year, our council was integrated with the American Turkish Council, which calls ATC, thereby becoming an integrated business council representing both US and Turkish companies. Following the integration, the US Turkey Business Council wanted to make sure to continue the legacy of ATC. As you may know, the ATC conference has been the premier event for US and Turkish relationship, business and the government executives for nearly 4 decades. While carrying this tradition to a virtual setting this year due to COVID had its fair share of challenges, our council, together with TAIC, was delighted to provide a platform for over 550 participants and more than 200 companies to convene to discuss ways to grow the US-Turkey bilateral trade and investments. This year's virtual ATC featured robust participation from US and Turkish business communities, with our council chair, Cargill's chairman and CEO, Dave McLennan, and our honorary chair, General James Jones, present, together with Nail Opak from the DEIC and Mehmet Ali Yalçında from the TAIC leadership. This year, 38 ATC tackled many sectors and hosted 13 keynote speakers, including high-level representatives from the US government, which I think is especially worth emphasizing that given the conference took place only 5 weeks before the US election. The US Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, General Todd Walters, who is the commander of the US European Command, and Deputy Secretary of State Stephen Biegun, and participation at US ATC so close to the US election was testament to importance attributed to bilateral relationship and the significant role business and commercial ties play. The overall focus of this year's ATC was, of course, on the 100 billion trade goal, which we expect will be embraced by the next US administration as well. Energy cooperation, digital technologies such as 5G, and infrastructure development were, I think, among the key sectors with the potential to boost bilateral trade and investment relations. Given that we are in the middle of the pandemic, there was a significant discussion around COVID cooperation, which I think we'll see more of the coming period. It will be worth re-examining the global supply chains and Turkey's place in them in a post-COVID world. Energy, of course, has been a key driver of growth, especially this year in the US-Turkey bilateral trade. US and Turkey energy trade grew in volume this year despite the economic challenges caused by the pandemic. Turkey's LNG imports from the US increased by more than 300% in the first half of the year alone, while Turkey overall export to US increased by 5.4% during the first 3 quarters of the year. In addition to energy cooperation that is supposed to include more than LNG, as Turkey discovers its own natural gas reserves working with US partners. ATC also highlighted tremendous opportunities for US and Turkey to cooperate on 5G and infrastructure developments that can leverage each country's strength and digital technology and construction, not just for bilateral partnership, but for regional cooperation as well. As the US-Turkey Business Council, we are particularly excited by the prospect of combining Turkish construction industries' strength with US financing to increase collaboration in Africa, Central Asia, Latin America, and the other parts of the world, where US and Turkish private sector can engender greater value together than separately.
Thank you very much, Tamer Bey. It's really great to hear in a difficult environment like this year, actually, in the world, the Turkey-US trade actually has increased, and probably it could have increased even more if we didn't have the environment we are in. And we are looking in that regard with hope into the future. And with that, I want to turn to Murat Bey, Chairman of Cargill, Middle East, Turkey and Africa, also a fellow member of AmCham Turkey. And Cargill is in Turkey, if I'm not wrong, almost for 60 decades. So has a long history in Turkey. And a long history also development of the improving quality and standards in the field of food and agriculture in Turkey, together with your local partners. And we also know, just tying to what Tamer Bey said, you managed to increase also business from Turkey, exports from Turkey during COVID-19 period. And we heard that you have actually started to replace some other countries in the global value chains. So owing to your experience in the current role and Cargill's experience in Turkey for the 6 decades, what role does the use of latest state-of-the-art technology, which is a strong suite of US investments? We said US investments has transforming effect because they are usually focused on high technology. So how this state-of-the-art technology you think can play in Turkey's enhanced role in the global value chains in your experience?
Thank you very much, Tankut Bey. First of all, I really want to thank all of you and Calder to give the opportunity to join into this conference. Yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, indeed, we are over 60 years now in Turkey. And in the last I would say 5 to 6 years, we also representing Turkey as a hub for the region, for the rest of the region, including Africa and Middle East. So back to your question, I think, I mean, there are a few things that I need to mention. You know, Cargill's philosophy is, or mission is to nourish the world in a safe, sustainable and responsible way. So all what we try to do, and I'm sure, I mean, many of our, you know, the companies operating in Turkey, the multinationals, I think do have the kind of the same philosophy, more or less, right? But I want to emphasize a few things. The number one is the food safety. Food touches everyone's life without exception. So it's in fact everyone's job. So in our organization, food safety is not the quality department's job only. So it's every single person's job, including myself. And we do have the reviews on a monthly basis, all the customer complaints and the food safety issues, if they arise, one by one at the top level. So to bring the culture and cascade it down. And we are trying to make a kind of a comprehensive, science-based and risk-based analysis in our policies, in our operations, and in our supply chain, without exception. So that's number one I want to mention on the food safety side. The other one is the food security, which is equally important. Today, the world is, let's say, 7 billion people, and by 2050, we will be close to 9 billion. Really, we need to move the food or the agricultural products from areas of abundance to the areas of scarcity. And today, almost 20% of the food or agricultural products are crossing borders in the world. So we do expect this to grow even further with the population increase. And another important point, since 1995, the world doubled its crop output, crop meaning the oil seeds and grains and all that stuff, doubled the output of that without expanding the land use. So this is something to think about, really, because I mean, in order to be able to feed the world, we have limited amount of land available, but to bring into the game the technology and the different experiences that we have elsewhere, I think is really critical to be able to nourish the world, in a sense. So what we do basically, as Cargill, I mean, we have a program to touch 10 million farmers actually in the world, to train them around best practices, how to, crop, how to harvest, and from crop to harvest. I mean, we have the programs in place, and we are proud to, maybe there are people who didn't heard this, but I mean, we have a program in Turkey as well, specific to Turkey, called 1000 Farmer, 1000 Prosperity, where we do supply to the farmers with the technology, with the digital technology, and through the satellite systems and through the sensors. We applied this program, and we are now running the third year of it with some improvements. And I'm pleased to share with you that we have gained 21% yield increase in the farmers who have applied this. What I'm trying to say here, basically, I mean, as US companies, we have a lot to share, and we got a lot of help from our headquarters, from our experience elsewhere, to bring into Turkey to adapt this according to the changes and then get benefit of that. So this is a really tangible example of that, which we are all proud of. The third point I want to make is the food innovation. The systems are changing, the consumption habits are changing, and especially the pandemic speeded up the things further. So in that sense, we need to have a kind of a pioneer role to make the transformational change into the food. I mean, not just copying with the small changes right and left in the legislation and regulations and all that stuff, but more so really look at what we can deliver to the people on the street, that they can eat safely and healthy. I mean, that in order to be able to accomplish that goal, we have built an R&D center, pretty sophisticated, here in the region, in Turkey, basically, and also making investments into delivering some functional systems, as we call it, which gives the best and optimum recipe for the consumer about the health aspect and about the dietary aspects of the whole equation. So, for example, our Tuya plant, which is an oils and fats plant, edible oils and fats plants that we have invested. We have heavily invested into that in the last 6 years, into the R&D and technical capabilities. So, without further ado, I don't want to get too much of your time in this round. What I'm trying to say is that as a long-term investor in the country, I think, and many of the the members of the chamber are in the same kind of position. I do believe that we are all long investors, so we don't think to just get our money and out. In that sense, we don't refrain from bringing the technology, bringing the R&D, bringing the best practices into Turkey, and with that, I think we are adding a lot of value together into the Turkish economy and Turkish prosperity.
Thank you, Murat Bey. I think you displayed very well the transformative, actually, influence of the U.S. investment, as in the case of Cargill. So it's great that you actually deliver on all the 5 priorities of all our member companies on growing your investment here. You have a big regional center out of here, and now you have also an R&D center, and you're working very well, even down to the farmers, with a very local ecosystem, and of course, contributing important corporate governance to raise the corporate governance as well. So thanks for sharing that with us. Now I want to turn to David with his experience. Actually, I want to ask him a very, very specific projects about the dialogue between the US and Turkey, and especially we as AmCham Turkey advocate continuation of this dialogue, people to people, business to business, and government to government, even in the most difficult circumstances, so that understanding one another against those challenges through that dialogue is the recipe for growing stronger business relations. So we are working in that regard. Actually, we have a project of driving more cultural cooperation among the 2 countries as AmCham. And now, as the partner of one of the leading public affairs company, you have 22 offices, more than 500 experts. So you really know the fabric of both countries as well, with also your experience in the Senate. So how can the US and Turkey better understand one another? So how we can keep that dialogue, especially on the cultural, so we don't fall into some of the cultural traps as well, with our backgrounds. So understanding each other, can you give us the recipe for this constructing and communication dialogue across 2 countries?
Sure, Tankut. First of all, let me thank you and AmCham Turkey again for inviting me to participate. It's a great honor, and it's great to be with you in this important conversation. My firm, Mercury Public Affairs, has worked with various Turkish companies and institutions for some time on all sorts of issues that are clustered around improving U.S.-Turkish relations and business opportunities. And we really have enjoyed that work. And we think the opportunities now are greater than ever before. So we're very, very upbeat about all of those opportunities. But I think you put the right emphasis on people-to-people and business-to-business contact as a key way to develop that relationship. I think often we tend to focus on government-to-government communications and contact. That's sometimes what's most in the news or what gains headlines. Obviously, if you have big trips by heads of state or high-ranking government officials, that's very newsworthy, and it is important. I'm not denying that's important, but often that follows other activity rather than leading it. And often it follows business to business, people to people communication and activity, which is exactly the sort of constructive activity that you all are so focused on, and I congratulate you on that. I served in the U.S. Congress, including the U.S. Senate, for 12 years. And I can tell you that business activity, that people-to-people contact is critical in helping shape impressions, for instance, of U.S. members of Congress. And that, in turn, follows through to shaping policy and improving U.S.-Turkish relations. So I think you're exactly right to focus on all of that, and that's the way to break through some of the cultural barriers. When I was in the U.S. Senate, I had many meetings with foreign government officials. I certainly had meetings with lobbyists like I am now, representing companies and projects. But ultimately, as a politician, what I cared most about were my constituents back home, the people I represented, and the people ultimately who would vote for or against me. And so going directly to those people through various educational, business, other experiences, other exchanges can have a dramatic impact over time. It's not going to be overnight, but over time in helping shape U.S. policy through, for instance, members of Congress. And so that soft power, that business-to-business interaction, organizing Turkish Americans who live in the U.S., organizing them to be more vocal and more involved in the political process so they can help encourage the development of these relations and these opportunities. All of that is really very, very important. And of course, you all are leading the way in terms of much of that activity, and I congratulate you for it. It's very, very important.
Thank you, David. Actually, you encourage Turkey to leverage its soft power in U.S. You said because
Yes.
we have actually years of link on education, like Fulbright. We have many Turkish executives based in U.S. In our member U.S. multinational companies. So there are really avenues that I guess you are encouraging us to use to drive more people-to-people connections, which will also,
Absolutely.
of course, will be also heard in Washington that way. Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you for that advice.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
Yeah,
I want
first
to...
of all, I was just going to add, first of all, I would focus on Turkish Americans, Turkish communities in America, and making sure they are fully involved in the political process and encouraging them to be ambassadors for this relationship. Because the more they are politically active and politically involved, the more U.S. politicians, like I used to be, members of Congress, members of the Senate, will focus on the relationship. Secondly, the business-to-business contacts. That's very important, and there are tremendous opportunities to expand those toward the goal that you mentioned having been set by the two presidents. You know, this U.S. focus on China as a threat, quite frankly, is not purely a phenomenon of President Trump. It's a growing bipartisan consensus. And with that comes opportunities for countries like Turkey to replace some of what China has been supplying in terms of the U.S. supply chain. There is a determined effort here to shift more away from China to diversify in terms of the U.S. supply chain, and Turkey is very well positioned to take advantage of that. And then other business to business and student exchanges, as you mentioned, can be very, very positive and beneficial in the same vein. So I think you all are leading the way in all of those sorts of interactions.
Thank you, David. Actually, we have one project as AmCham, what we call Global Turks. This is to map the Turks who are actually in leading positions in the global jobs of our fellow US companies, and not related to only US, but also all foreign companies. We have many of those business executives, Turkish business executives can, we think, help on that dialogue. And you're actually mentioning that Turkey's role possibly in the global value chain can be improved in the current environment. I think it's a great segue for my second question to Tamer Bey. Tamer Bey knows very well the history of also US and Turkey working together in trade and investment linkages. There are shared economic interests. So what is the significant role does the cooperation with the US can play for a more competitive and prosperous Turkey? I think David just mentioned in the now the participation of Turkey more in the global value chain, maybe replacing some other companies. And then that is the Turkey angle of it. But how does the US also can benefit from that cooperation? Tamer Bey.
Of course. I mean, at the end of the day, thank you very much, Tankut Bey. At the end of the day, the benefits must be mutual. So to be able to actually continue. So I see clear path for it. Just, I mean, as the 2008 global financial crisis showed businesses the importance of productivity and competitiveness to survive economic fluctuations, the pandemic has become another reminder for us to remain agile while increasing competitiveness that is now only really possible through innovation and the digital transformation. The US-Turkey Business Council, of which I am vice chair, supports many industries where US and Turkey cooperation has been robust. We have an Eurospace and defense working group, as the defense industry has historically been a backbone of US-Turkey cooperation. This cooperation has laid the groundwork for Turkey's tremendous progress in our domestic defense capabilities. Last year, the Turkish defense industry exported products to 164 countries, with the United States as the top recipient of Turkish defense products. Secondly, the Council has a digital economy advisory board comprised of leading US and Turkish companies to advise both governments on greater cooperation in the technology sector to better connect Turkish goods and services with the global marketplace. The digital economy offers tremendous opportunities for growth via digitalization to transform economies, while minimizing human error and maximizing efficiency. The COVID has expedited consumer trade flows from physical to digital, and some of those gains will be here to stay beyond the pandemic. Turkey has been one of the world's fastest growing e-commerce markets, a trend we expect to continue. The US and Turkey already have an excellent track record of cooperation in the digital space that has not only contributed to Turkish competitiveness, but also resulted in our first ever unicorn when Zigna made its biggest acquisition by purchasing Turkey's Peak Games for a record 1.8 billion US dollars. Similarly, Amazon purchased Turkish startup Dataro in its first ever Turkish tech acquisition soon after Microsoft acquired Turkey's open source firm Citus Data. It is important to recognize that the presence of the US companies in Turkey has been a great driver of economic growth and contributor to Turkish private sector competitiveness. There are many examples across different sectors where competing against or partnering with US companies have paved the way for Turkish companies to be more competitive. It is also important to take note of the growing investment in the United States by Turkish companies. We are working on organizing trade missions to the United States that I am looking forward to leading to ensure that the trade and investment relationship between our countries continues to expand in both directions. The point about the benefits of US-Turkey cooperation was also not lost on the US ambassador to Turkey, David Satterfield, during our fireside chat at the ATC. During our session, he stated, and I quote, "Both the United States and Turkey have a large, complex, sophisticated economy, industrial, high-tech agricultural base. Turkey and the United States are participating not just within domestic markets, but globally in almost every sector. Turkey is enormous, competitive, and has demonstrated that it is able to be marketplace for most advanced industries in the world." I concur with Mr. Ambassador and join him in his optimism not just for Turkey, but the future of the US-Turkey commercial relations, given our track record in generating even greater value when our companies work together.
Thank you, Tamer Bey. The examples you have given are very, very encouraging, and some of them probably is not very well known publicly as well.
Yes.
Especially on your example on the defense industry, that US is one of the major recipients of the Turkish defense industry. So the cooperations on the new digital area, like the Turkish startups, unicorns being purchased, this is well known, but seems to be continuing. So there are really benefits for both sides. And as also a member of as Procter & Gamble of US-Turkey Business Council, I totally agree with your actually phrase that US investment has really transforming effect in Turkey, and one of the biggest actually gainees are the Turkish companies who work with those US companies, and that I think is gives me the good connection to ask the question to Murat Bey. As a company working in Turkey for 6 decades, and we just said that local suppliers' initial cooperation with US companies in Turkey prepares them, equips them to connect it to the global markets and increase so that they can catch up with the global quality and the production standards with the help of the US companies here. So in your view, what is necessary to instill in our partners and local suppliers in our ecosystem in Turkey as the US companies? What is necessary for them to reach a culture of a sustainable quality so that they can contribute to the global value chains in a bigger way?
Well, I think there's no doubt that the multinationals are bringing a lot of value if they are long-life players, right, in a country. And I remember, 25, 30 years ago, the stance of the food industry in Turkey and comparing with now, there's a tremendous development and improvement in terms of being competitive, from moving to be a copy and paste type of business to a more kind of self-initiator, self-developer, self-starter, self-innovative, you name it, a kind of company offering new products and services. I mean, we should be proud. I'm talking about the food industry that I'm in. Turkey has made a tremendous change over the last 2-3 decades in that respect. So that didn't came automatically. I mean, that came with copy-paste initially and then building your own stuff on top of that. I think in that respect, all the multinationals, and especially the US multinationals, had a big role to play and still have a big role to play again to transform this industry further. Yeah, you mentioned earlier in the first round about our exports to India, to Far East, basically. I mean, we are producing transformer oils in our Dilovası plant. So it's not food, but I mean, we also have a bioindustrial play in Turkey. And you know, there was a bit of issue in the production and supply chain in India, so that Indian facility was not able to supply to the Far East markets, which we have filled in the gap to the big extent. Um, and the reason I'm mentioning is that I mean it gives the importance of this all world connection, you know, all infrastructure which might be able to fill in the bad times, and we have experienced this in different occasions as well, but I'm more so in the pandemic now since almost a year. That it gives the importance of this connection throughout the world. So the companies or the production which are being done in Turkey is utmost crucial to be able to serve the global companies' networks elsewhere. So that's one point I want to make. The other point I want to make is that we grow together with our partners. I mean, let me give you an example. I mean, 30 years ago, when we first started to produce glucose in Turkey, glucose is now a kind of a commodity product, but since then, back then, it was not. I mean, it was a really special product which goes into one of the main raw materials that the confectionery producers are using. It was we just produced this as benchmarking with all the good technology and so on, and built a state of the art plant at that time in Turkey. And then we have seen our competitors started to produce the same thing more or less. I mean, initially it was yellowish color. It used to be white, pure white. And we have seen in 2-3 years down the road that I mean that improved very quickly by the Turkish entrepreneurs to copy and paste it. And today, I mean, I should confess that I mean we are not what we produce is not that special in terms of glucose, right? I mean everyone can produce, and we brought that technology into Turkey. And then furthermore, we have seen that the kind of same pattern in our engineering firms. I mean they have built plants for us, along with our central engineering headquarters that we have. And then they learned how to build the plant in the food industry. And then now they are kind of the regional players to deliver those kind of services and build turnkey projects even in the region for our competitors, right? And this is good because I mean it brings a lot of exports, not physical exports, but the service exports from Turkey to elsewhere. So what I'm trying to say is that the multinationals add value, especially when you bring the technology in. Yes, the local companies are copy and pasting that, and nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, I should say. And this is sometimes needed in order to develop further. One last point I want to make is that as Turkish people, we are born with entrepreneurial DNAs, with agility DNAs. I mean, and probably the reason is simple. I mean, Turks started to move thousands of years ago from Central Asia, and each and every day they were faced with something new, and they need to adapt themselves on a daily basis even. So probably that's in our DNA to some extent, which is very good in terms of agility, very quick response to the upcoming changes and all that stuff. Related with the quality, however, I think might be a pain point to some extent, because quality requires you to be process honoring. And agility is good, but I think it's equally important that we have the systems in place to make sure that the things are sustainably working every day, every minute. In that sense, I think as Turkish people, with the kind of agility that we have, I think we can combine good size of both, taking the technology, taking the process orientation, taking the more kind of regulated stuff from US knowledge on from US experience, and combining with the agility that we have in Turkey. I think probably is a good formula to play and for success, in my opinion. Thank you.
Actually, Murat Bey, you made a very, very important and good point. This is why Calder was established many years back exactly for that, to make quality systemic, so that the Turkish companies here can play a bigger role in the global markets. So that's exactly, I think, the examples you have given is really going that direction. I think the way you also establish your R&D center is probably is a key vehicle to increase that quality standards for your local partners. And you also mentioned the resiliency of the Turkey overall in this global pandemic in terms of production, so that you are able to serve the needs of some other markets. And we hear this from many of our members as well. If I can give one example from Procter & Gamble, with I'm in charge, actually in March and April was our highest ever export months, because we were able to fill in some of the void in the European factories because of the absenteeism that started, as many of the workers had to stay at home. And the average age in our plants, Europe versus Turkey, is very different. Turkey is much younger, as you may expect. So we now keep that sort of momentum in our Turkish plants, and we now export 1/3 of our production. And together with that, another example, again, to, I think, evidence to what Murat Bey said, we as P&G has almost 50 Turkish partners here. They are exporting almost $170 million to other P&G companies all around the world. First, they started working with P&G Turkey. Now they become member, and that has increased in the global value chain. We have similar, actually, example, Murat Bey, as you had. So I don't want to take more time, but I think this is a great example how the US companies builds an ecosystem, and that ecosystem, Turkish companies over time increase their quality standards so they can compete in the global value chains very, very successfully and make quality systemic. Very, very strong evidences of that. So, of course, in everybody's mind is, now I come to David for my second question. So how the US-Turkey business relations will be in moving forward? So I specifically asked the business relations, not political, because that's not necessarily the topic of our panel today.
Right.
So there are also bottlenecks in the business. And you know very well, with your experience in Washington, things are quite shaping right now in US in an interesting way. But so what are the sort of ways to overcome current bottlenecks in the business so that fundamental economic and commercial pillars of relationship emerge stronger and more stable? And as you said in your first question, over time that also, of course, improves even further to government relations as well.
Right. Well, as I said a few minutes ago, I think the opportunities for those Turkish-U.S. business relationships to grow and prosper are enormous. No one wished this horrible pandemic on the world, but I actually think it's an opportunity in Turkey's case, coupled with, as I mentioned before, the growing concern in the U.S., which is now quite bipartisan, about over-reliance on the Chinese supply chain. So all of that is an opportunity that I think Turkey is taking advantage of and can take fuller advantage of. Looking for those common goals with U.S. businesses is the key, and filling that need as a relatively low-cost, high-quality producer, well-positioned geographically, well-positioned politically to supply many, many goods that previously perhaps had come from China. Huge opportunity. Just looking for those sweet spots is the way to break through some of the bottlenecks. You talked about breaking through bottlenecks. I actually think the biggest bottlenecks are political, are government to government. Some of the disputes between the governments with Russian defense systems, et cetera. And the way to break through that is just exploiting these business sweet spots that are clearly in the best interest of both sides, and exploiting that. Another great way to overcome it which is not possible now, but hopefully will be before too long, is travel and tourism. Of course, that's a great economic sector for Turkey. It's a great growth opportunity once we get past the pandemic. It's also a way to educate people about both cultures and to have that sort of exchange to grow that travel and tourism from the U.S. Once we get over the pandemic is a great way to help break through any remaining cultural or other bottlenecks. It's really a shame that's not going on now. It's such a powerful way to forge relationships and alliances between peoples of the two countries. But I think once we get past the pandemic, once we get back on track, the sky's the limit in terms of Turkish tourism, including from the U.S. And that, besides being an important economic sector in and of itself, that could be a powerful tool of forging closer relationships and breaking through some of the cultural differences, misunderstandings, or bottlenecks.
Yeah, thank you, David. I think you reminded once again that the importance of people to people and the business connections, and increase those, is the best insurance so that the government dialogue also is healthy and constructive and successful going forward. And we hope that time to come as soon as it can. Maybe related with that, with your experience, I may just ask you an additional question on the COVID-19, how that impacted government affairs in your experience. So can the new normals be in that way leveraged to ensure the business continuity? What do you think about that?
Well, I just mentioned the downside. I mean, clearly there is a downside to not having the sort of travel and personal interaction as we did before the pandemic. I think that level of interaction is really critical, and you can't just replace it with a Zoom meeting. However, perhaps the upside is with us all getting more comfortable doing more long distance, having conferences virtually like we're doing right now, having more and more business meetings on platforms like Zoom, I think it will increase the frequency with which we communicate. I think we'll all get a lot more used to it. And therefore, rather than waiting for a once a year in-person conference, there's going to be a lot more weekly interaction via technology going into the future. And hopefully that will be a positive that can somewhat compensate for the obvious negative in terms of loss of that personal interaction. I think government and politics has to try to adjust in the same way. I think it's been a big loss for there not to be as much people-to-people interaction, citizens not being able to interact with elected officials nearly as much. But hopefully that can somewhat be taken up by the frequency of virtual meetings and bringing the cost down of that sort of thing. I think you're going to see big permanent changes coming out of this pandemic in that regard, whether it's business or government, academia, really any other setting.
Yeah. Actually, you raise a very interesting point. So the current environment can be even an opportunity. In a way, the world became smaller because you now can reach out despite the distances to Zoom, to digital means like you are joining now in a much more simpler, seamless, and effortless way, so that those dialogues can really actually leverage the current environment on the not only, of course, government to government. We clearly see on the business to business frequency increased. If not in person, to get always the agendas were not that easy. But to digitally, things seem to be easier in that way, and use that opportunity that now the digital technologies are giving us very, very good advice as well. So we're coming to the end of our panel. If you have any additional points, our dear panelists, if you'd like to make, I can give you just 1 minute to each one for your final 2 sentences. Then we can bring it to a closure. Maybe I start with Tamer Bey. In 2 sentences, how do you see the Turkey and US relations?
Tankut Bey, at the end of the day, we are aware of the actual situations, challenges we face in terms of the relations between the US and Turkey. But I can say that I'm personally, and then I'm very confident about the future of our relations, bilateral relations. And then I see that our future is very bright and clear. So just we need to be a little patience, and then we shouldn't actually to enter the negative mood when we see the up and downs in our relations. So I think at the end of the day, we will reach the actually to the mutual understanding between 2 partners, and then we will come back to our the normal the phase of our relationships. Thank you very much again for this opportunity for you and for the Calder.
Thank you. A bright and clear future we heard from Tamer Bey. Murat Bey?
No, I would echo to what Tamer Bey said. But, you know, we are all business people at the end of the day. And, you know, in our businesses on a daily basis, yes, we do look at the challenges and try to manage the risks. But we certainly look at the opportunities. I think with US-Turkey relationships going forward, I mean, I'm talking again not on the political, but more so on the business side. I think if we focus on the opportunities rather than the challenges, I think that will be a win-win for everyone. Same as we do every day for our business, right? I think that's why I think it would be good to not to be too much stuck with the risks and so on. Of course, we need to manage that. We cannot underestimate. But those do not bring you to the next stage. I mean, what brings you to the next stage are the opportunities, not the challenges, in my opinion. So in that sense, we should get benefit of that in the next round of Turkish-US relationships. Thank you for
opportunities and opportunities
exactly.
and optimism. We heard from you for the future. David?
My final thought would be really to congratulate AmCham Turkey on all of your initiatives in furthering people-to-people and business-to-business contacts, and just to encourage you, please keep doing what you're doing. That will be the key to getting through the ups and downs of the political relationship. That will be the key to building a solid foundation for this relationship to grow. And I also am very optimistic that it will grow, and there are huge opportunities for that positive growth. But your work in terms of furthering the people-to-people and the business-to-business contacts and understanding is ultimately what's going to get us there.
Thank you. I think we all heard from you not only those promises, but also the evidences behind those promises, like the increasing trade even in the current environment with US and Turkey. Tamer Bey said, Murat Bey gave examples from how Cargill is increasing the participation of Turkey Cargill into global value chain, and you gave example on the importance of Turkey using its soft power, which it has with the years of partnership. So overall, I think we all agree Turkey and US relationships has a very strong foundation and a very bright, clear opportunities going forward. So thank you very much for your valuable thoughts and participation, dear panelists. And I also want to thank you, all the participants, to listen to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.